Do you remember what you were doing in 1996? Well, I remember what I was doing. I was playing fucking Quake. This game is amazing, even though it's flawed and wasn't the original vision of its creators. I was going to start this video off with some history and a bit of the rough gestation of this game, but no. If that's the kind of thing you're looking for, then I really suggest going and watching the Quake video on the Ahoy channel. That would be your best bet. Quake is so much bigger than that to me that trying to do a serious, history-based video essay would be doing the feelings I have for this game a huge damn disservice. What this is going to be is pure raw feelings and thoughts. Well, I try to make this personal. Make this about how this game makes me feel and some of the memories tied to it as well. I can close my eyes and remember this CD sleeve. I saw this on the shelf and knew immediately that I absolutely had to play this. I had never seen anything quite like it before. My gaming experience with something similar up till that point was Doom, which of course was the game series it had released before this one. This, though, looked nothing like Doom. It had a very unique thing going on. It looked a little twisted, a little more dark in a cerebral way. I was just entering the full throes of puberty at this point, so things that were a bit twisted and fucked up was right up my alley. I didn't get to play it right away, as it took some time to get the game installed and working properly before I could get a chance to finally enter this world. I had just read and memorized many of the facts, pictures, and lines from the manual and kept it with me just about all the time in anticipation of this epic moment. When I finally got into Quake, it was something that immediately struck a chord with me. The weapons, the monsters, the music. It was all a perfect storm of atmosphere that I can still gush about to this day. I have very fond memories of hosing baddies with the super nail gun, taking down a shambler with the lightning gun, which always seemed perfectly poetic, seeking out those runes at the end of every episode, just waiting to see how the whole thing would play out. Even after having completed the game multiple times by now over the years, that particular thrill of plowing myself through rotten flesh all the way to the end just to get that rune never really gets old. I will also say that as far as the game design goes, it works so well that you really have to analyze the shit out of the game to try to figure out where compromises were made and things don't quite match up. Yes, the most obvious sign is the slipgates, but if you actually allow yourself to just let the flow of the game happen, it just makes sense. Hopping dimensions looking for all the keys to kill the big evil at the end works just as well as the original plan for Ranger and his exploits. The gallery of ghouls and ghastlies also works very well, creating an almost horror game feel, but still making it also feel very evil, very Elder God, very Lovecraft. It's definitely not the same type of evil as we saw in Doom. Demons are scary in a way that is more of a primal trigger. Quake, though, much like Lovecraft himself, is very much a type of scary that gets in your head and really fucks with you. It drives itself in there like a thorn and just makes you uneasy without being able to put a finger on why. I think that's why I like Silent Hill so much, because it's the same kind of thing. It drives me a bit batshit crazy, though, because I also feel like this is the kind of universe that could be taken in so many directions, and they could have done so much with a palette like that, but they didn't. This was a one-hit wonder in the best way that is possible. But wait, I hear you typing at me in the comments. There were multiple sequels to Quake, including the recent Quake Champions. Okay, yes, you are right. There were other games with the name Quake attached to them, but I hate to break it to you, but none, and I mean none, of these were proper sequels to Quake. I have a video upcoming, though, where I'll talk about that at length, but until then, we'll get back to the Dimension of the Damned. I'm not going to dive deep into the entire campaign, I'm just going to kind of give you a greatest hits list of highlights for me. The way the game starts you off, you get to manually walk down the difficulty hallway that will eventually wind up in the episode selection hub. From here, you can pick the episode you want to play by going down these hallways. I will say that the disc I got to bring home that day in 1996 was just the shareware episode, and I didn't know it. When I first got into the game, I tried to go down the other hallways, only to find them locked with a message to call a number to unlock the full version. I was also then gutted to find out that the lightning gun and some of the enemies were also only in the full version, so as a result, I was kind of stuck playing just the first episode for a long time. But when I finally got the full retail big box, I was so happy to finally be able to get into every tiny nook and cranny that this game had to offer. Each episode has its own sort of style in that it reflects the dimension that you are to a degree. Yeah, Quake gets a lot of flack for being so brown and dark. Well, if you were to travel to a dimension of evil or dark elder gods or palaces of grotesque things, you would think that it would be dark and kind of brown. I absolutely dig the shit out of the themes and colors being used. It fits like a perfect shirt with your favorite band on it, comfy and awesome and metal all at the same time. Speaking of metal, there's some awesome hardware in this game. The nail gun, a twin-barrel implement of medieval-ass kickery. The ammo pickups are also industrial because they bear the mark of the 9-inch nails. The nails also fuels the ammo hose that is the super nail gun. Never has spraying and praying been so much demented fun. The cherry on top of this twisted sundae is of course the lightning gun. You want to feel like Zeus? Well, here you fucking go. Just don't pull the trigger in water. You'll really regret it. Speaking of regretting things, you should regret it if you don't play this game at least once just to see what it once was. It's never been a better time to do so, either as the base game itself is extremely cheap right now, and there's definitely no shortage of source ports to play Quake on. If you want to be all schmancy and shiny, there's this way, which is honestly the way I prefer to play. This is Dark Places with Rigel's Ultra textures. This is what you've been seeing so far. There are of course other options if you're a bit of a purist to want to keep the same type of graphics. Quake Spasm is a great option, especially if you want to play Arcane Dimensions, as that's what the mod was designed to work on. There's also Mark V, and of course there's always GL Quake. There's also a ton of mods available, as I said a second ago, Arcane Dimensions being one of the best. There's also Quake 1.5, which I will cover more depth in its own video, but this is also serious awesome sauce too. Trust me though, once you get this bad boy fired up and jib a few zombies, avoid some grenades from an ogre, and spear a shambler with lightning of your own, you'll thank me. If you see a Vor for the first time and kind of freak out like I did, that's job done right there. These things are just horrible. Of course, not as bad as the spawns. I've had many memorable encounters with these assholes, most of them not going very well. Of course, practice does help. Also, a liberal use of console commands also helps too sometimes, just being honest. Yeah, in case you haven't figured it out yet, I'm not one of these people who play on harder difficulties because I feel more accomplished getting my ass kicked repeatedly. I play for enjoyment of what's being put in front of me. If I really wanted to be challenged, I would learn to be a modder or level designer. Oh, I could also make my own game engine too if I really wanted to, just to make my life super miserable. Anyway, I digress. There are very few complaints I have ever had about this game. The biggest ones really, though, are the fact that the first episode is the only one with a proper boss, the endgame is a little disappointing, and the damn emphasis everyone has on the multiplayer when they look back on this game. Yeah, I know, it was groundbreaking in the deathmatch space, and there were legendary tournaments that led to MLG and part and blah, yeah. I'll be honest, I really couldn't give a shit less about multiplayer gaming. It really just isn't something I've ever found to be fun. I'm definitely more in the tight, well-crafted single-player campaign camp. Fling your hatred at me if you must, but that's just the way it is, and this game is the first real shining example of how well that could be done. I really get tired of the campaign, if you want to call it that, getting so overlooked. The atmosphere that the levels and monsters all create, it makes my soul happy. I stand by my thoughts, though. This is my favorite game, full stop. And I really hope that if you've never given it a try, go do so. Get yourself some Quake in your life. Get a little twisted. Enjoy the music. And don't have any regrets. And if anyone judges you, tell them I sent you. Oh, and don't forget about Dopefish. Until then, folks. Until then.